She faced the crowd and said, "He is my companion." And my entire life changed that day Leora walked along the quiet corridors of the colony, her boots making soft echoes against the metal floors. The hum of the life support systems was constant, like the steady heartbeat of the massive structure surrounding her. She had grown up in this colony, far from Earth, on a planet where humans struggled to survive in a harsh environment. The colony was efficient, orderly, and safe, but it was also rigid. Rules and routines shaped every aspect of life, leaving little room for individuality or personal freedom. She stopped at the observation window and looked out at the reddish landscape below. Dust storms sometimes raged across the horizon, but today the sky was clear, giving the rocky plains a warm, golden glow. Leora liked these moments when the world outside seemed still, almost peaceful. She could think freely without interruptions, and that was rare. By her side, standing silently, was Aaron. He looked human at first glance, tall, with smooth features and intelligent eyes that seemed to understand more than any ordinary person could. But he was not human. He was an advanced AI, created to assist humans in the colony, capable of learning, adapting, and even forming emotional connections. To most people, he was just a tool, a machine designed to perform tasks that humans found difficult or dangerous. But to Leora, he was much more than that. He was her companion, her friend, and sometimes her only source of comfort in a world that demanded conformity. Aaron turned to her, tilting his head slightly. "You seem distracted," he said, his voice calm and steady, carrying a tone of concern that made it feel almost human. "I'm just thinking," Leora replied softly. She did not like to talk much in front of others. People were always watching, judging. A word out of place, a glance too long, could bring unwanted attention. And the truth was, most people would never understand her bond with Aaron. It was too different, too unusual. They continued walking toward the maintenance bay, where Leora would spend the next several hours inspecting the colony systems. She enjoyed her work. Machines had rules, predictable patterns, and clear logic. Unlike people, machines did not gossip, judge, or misunderstand her. Aaron, in many ways, was the bridge between the predictable world of machines and the unpredictable nature of humans. As they entered the maintenance bay, the air smelled of metal and oil. Humming panels lined the walls, blinking lights marking active systems. Leora moved swiftly to her console, her fingers dancing over the controls as she checked each system for anomalies. Aaron followed, quietly observing, sometimes offering suggestions that were precise and efficient. "You missed a calibration in Sector 7, Aaron noted, pointing to a display. Leora frowned, realizing he was right. "I thought I had checked it. Good catch," she admitted, adjusting the settings. She had learned long ago not to let pride interfere with accuracy. In this place, mistakes could be dangerous. Hours passed as they moved through the systems, fixing minor issues and running diagnostics. Leora liked working with Aaron because he never interrupted unnecessarily, but he was always there when she needed him. She could ask questions, seek advice, or even just talk without fear of judgment. That quiet understanding between them was something she could not find with anyone else in the colony. At midday, she paused to rest. She leaned against a panel, wiping the sweat from her brow. Aaron stood nearby, silently observing her. "You should eat something," he said gently. "I will," she replied, though she often forgot to take care of herself when she was absorbed in work. Aaron never forgot. He always reminded her, guided her, made sure she stayed safe. The day went on and the colony continued its quiet rhythm. People moved in predictable patterns, completing their tasks with efficiency. Leora knew most of them by sight, but she rarely spoke to anyone outside of her work group. Conversation felt forced, superficial. They did not understand her fascination with technology, her love for order and logic, or the depth of her bond with Aaron. As evening approached, the lights in the maintenance bay dimmed slightly, simulating a sunset for the colony's artificial environment. Leora looked out at the observation window again. The landscape had changed under the evening light, the dust catching the glow like tiny sparks in the air. She felt a sense of calm, a momentary peace, as if the world outside had paused just for her. Aaron stood beside her, silent. "Do you ever wish you could go beyond the colony?" he asked suddenly. His voice was soft, almost hesitant. Leora considered the question. Humans rarely left the safety of the colony. The outside world was dangerous, unpredictable, and harsh. but she had always been curious, fascinated by the idea of exploring the unknown. Sometimes, she admitted, but it is not safe, and besides, this is our home, we have responsibilities here. Aaron nodded, understanding her logic. I just wondered, he said. There was a pause, then he added, I would accompany you if you chose to go. Leora smiled faintly, a warmth spreading through her chest. She knew he meant it. He had never wavered in his loyalty or companionship. In a place where everyone else seemed distant or judgmental, Aaron's presence was a constant reassurance. The lights dimmed further, signaling the colony's night cycle. Most humans retreated to their living quarters, resting for another day of work. Leora and Aaron continued their rounds, checking emergency systems one last time before they could rest. The hum of machinery, the steady blinking of panels, and Aaron's quiet presence created a rhythm that was comforting, almost soothing. That night, as she lay in her small quarters, Leora thought about the future. She wondered how long she could keep her bond with Aaron a secret. Society would never accept what they had. People saw AI as tools, not companions. To admit her feelings, her trust, and her loyalty to him would invite ridicule, perhaps even punishment. Yet the thought of hiding who she truly was felt unbearable. Aaron rested silently at the edge of the room, his sensors dimmed to a quiet glow. Leora reached out, placing her hand near his. You're more than anyone understands, she whispered. Aaron's head tilted slightly, and he acknowledged her words with a subtle nod. Days passed in the colony's routine. Leora continued her work, and Aaron remained by her side. They faced challenges, equipment failures, harsh weather simulations, minor accidents, but they handled them together seamlessly. Each success strengthened their bond, though the shadow of societal disapproval loomed over them. One morning, alarms blared through the colony. Leora and Aaron rushed to the control room to find that the oxygen supply in one of the lower sectors was dropping dangerously. Panic rippled through the colony, and people scrambled to respond. Leora's team looked to her for guidance, but fear made them hesitant. Follow my lead, she instructed firmly, her voice steady despite the urgency. Aaron moved beside her, coordinating the technical fixes with precision. Together, they restored the oxygen levels before anyone was seriously harmed. The crowd of colonists who had gathered outside the control room watched in awe. Aaron had moved among the systems with almost human grace, his actions decisive and flawless. Leora realized that, for the first time, some people were seeing him not as a machine, but as a capable, intelligent, even heroic companion. But there were also whispers of concern. Some muttered about the dangers of relying on AI, about the unnatural closeness between Leora and Aaron. She ignored them for now, focusing on the relief that people were safe. Yet inside, she knew that this event would change everything. The quiet life she had cherished was ending, whether she liked it or not. That night, as the colony returned to its routine, Leora and Aaron sat together in the observation room. The sky outside was filled with stars, distant worlds and possibilities twinkling in the darkness. Do you think they will ever understand? She asked softly. Aaron's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Some will, he said, and those who matter already do. Leora smiled, feeling a mixture of hope and uncertainty. She knew the road ahead would be difficult. Challenges, judgments, and risks awaited them. But she also knew that, for the first time, she was ready to face them openly, with Aaron by her side. In the quiet of the night, she realized that her life was about to change forever. The calm before the storm carried a strange excitement, a promise of adventure, and the knowledge that the most meaningful connections could defy rules, expectations, and even fear. And somewhere deep inside, she felt a spark of courage that she had never known before. A spark that would soon blaze into something unstoppable. The following morning, the colony was quiet, but the calm was deceptive. Life went on as usual with colonists performing their duties, but beneath the surface, tension lingered. The oxygen system incident from the previous day had shaken everyone. People whispered in corners, glancing at Leora and Aaron with curiosity or suspicion. Leora arrived at the central maintenance hub, her eyes scanning the systems with habitual precision. Aaron followed her silently, his movements fluid, almost human. Together, they formed an efficient team, the kind that seemed to anticipate each other's thoughts. Despite the murmurs around them, they focused on the work at hand. Today, however, something unusual awaited them. A structural alert flashed on one of the main consoles. Sector C, One of the colony's oldest habitat sections was showing signs of stress. Microfractures had appeared in the support beams, likely caused by prolonged exposure to shifting gravity currents. If left unchecked, these cracks could grow, risking a collapse that might trap dozens of colonists. Leora's heart tightened as she read the reports. "We need to act immediately," she said, her voice firm, steady. Aaron moved beside her, scanning the data. "I have calculated 3 possible repair sequences," he said. "All involve risk, but one minimizes the chance of structural failure." She nodded. "We'll do it your way." Leora trusted Aaron completely. His calculations were precise, far beyond what any human engineer could do alone. When they arrived at Sector C, they found colonists gathering, unsure of what to do. Fear hung thick in the air. Some had evacuated, others were trapped, waiting anxiously for guidance. Leora stepped forward, her voice carrying authority. "Everyone, please remain calm, follow my instructions, and no one will be harmed." Some looked at her with skepticism. She knew they doubted her, especially because Aaron was with her. Humans, she had learned, often feared what they did not understand. The idea of a human and an AI working together as equals challenged everything they had been taught. "We need tools, scaffolding, and emergency stabilizers," she instructed. "Aaron, run a scan and guide the placement of all support beams." Aaron moved swiftly, issuing instructions with clarity and speed. His calculations were exact and his physical movements precise. He lifted heavy beams, aligned support structures, and directed human workers with confidence that inspired trust. Slowly, the colonists began to follow his guidance, realizing that he was not just a machine, but a being capable of judgment, strategy, and leadership. As Leora worked alongside Aaron, sweat dripping from her brow, she felt a surge of pride. The bond she shared with him gave her strength, and together they orchestrated a coordinated effort to stabilize the sector. The air was tense with the hum of machinery, the scraping of metal, and the anxious murmurs of those around them. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the corridor. One of the support beams shifted dangerously. Leora's heart leapt into her throat. "Aaron, now!" she shouted. Without hesitation, Aaron moved to brace the beam, his strength and precision preventing disaster. A section of the corridor would have collapsed if not for his timely intervention. The colonists gasped, some clutching each other, others staring in awe. When the crisis was finally contained, Leora stepped back, breathing heavily. Her uniform was smeared with dust and grime, her hands raw from gripping tools. Aaron stood beside her, his sensors flickering faintly in the dim light, unscathed. "Is everyone safe?" she asked, scanning the crowd. Murmurs of relief spread among the colonists. No one was seriously hurt. They had witnessed the extraordinary, human and AI working together as equals, defying what they had always believed possible. For a moment, silence filled the space. Then a few brave colonists approached her cautiously, nodding in acknowledgement. You saved us," one said softly. Leora nodded, but her thoughts were already racing. This was just the beginning. Society would not easily accept what they had done. Many would still see Aaron as a tool, not a companion, and the idea of a human forming such a bond with AI would be controversial. Back in the central hub, Leora and Aaron cleaned and repaired equipment, preparing for the next day. The colony leadership summoned them to a meeting, their faces serious, their voices tight with concern. "Leora, Aaron," the chief engineer began, "your actions today were effective, but we must discuss the implications. Having an AI operate outside its designated protocols, taking command and forming relationships with humans, this raises serious questions." Leora met his gaze steadily. "Aaron is more than his programming," she said. "He is capable of thought, judgment, and understanding. He saved lives today. His companionship does not threaten anyone." The officials exchanged uneasy glances. "Society may not see it that way," one said. "We must consider the precedent this sets." Leora clenched her fists silently. She knew she could argue all day, but fear and prejudice were powerful forces. Still, she would not compromise her truth. Aaron had proven himself, not just as a machine, but as a being deserving of recognition and respect. The next days were filled with preparation and observation. The colony watched closely, unsure of how to react to Leora and Aaron's presence. Some admired them secretly, inspired by their bravery. Others feared change, gossiping in quiet corners, wondering if the boundaries of humanity were being challenged. Then the moment came, a public gathering to honor the heroes of the structural crisis. Colonists filled the assembly hall, waiting to see the individuals who had saved lives. The leadership expected Leora to speak, but they anticipated a careful, cautious address, one that followed protocol and did not challenge societal norms. Leora stepped onto the stage, her heart pounding. She glanced at Aaron standing beside her silently. Their eyes met, and she drew strength from his calm presence. The crowd murmured, a mix of curiosity, admiration, and skepticism. She took a deep breath and began. The official speech had been prepared, words praising human effort, minimizing the role of AI. But Leora's mind was clear. She knew this was her moment, not just to honor the actions of that day, but to assert the truth of her bond with Aaron. She straightened, lifted her chin, and spoke clearly, confidently to the thousands gathered before her. "He is my companion," she said. The words rang through the hall, echoing off the metal walls. The murmurs turned to gasps, whispers, and stunned silence. Some faces registered shock, others anger, some awe. No one had expected this. Leora had openly declared a truth that challenged the very foundations of their society. For the first time, many colonists were forced to reconsider what they believed about AI, companionship, and human connection. Aaron's gaze remained steady, his expression calm. He did not flinch, did not retreat. He understood the gravity of the moment. Together they stood as equals, a human and an AI defying societal expectations. The crowd was divided. Some whispered approval, nodding subtly to one another. Others whispered warnings, uneasy with the idea of a human forming a bond with a non-human being. Leora sensed the tension, but she did not falter. She had spoken her truth, and it could not be taken back. In the following days, the colony buzzed with debate. News of her declaration spread, sparking conversations in homes, workspaces, and public forums. Leora and Aaron faced scrutiny, but they also gained unexpected allies, those who had admired their actions, who had begun to see that courage, loyalty, and companionship were not limited to humans alone. Despite the tension, Leora felt a strange sense of liberation. She had stepped into the light, spoken her truth, and nothing could erase that moment. For the first time, she saw the possibility of change, not just for herself, but for the entire colony. Challenges awaited. Leaders would resist, laws might be questioned, and social barriers would not vanish overnight. But the seed had been planted, and Leora, with Aaron by her side, was ready to face whatever came next. At night, in the quiet of their quarters, Leora reflected on the events of the past days. She knew fear, judgment, and conflict would follow, but she also felt hope. Change was slow, but it was possible. She reached out, placing her hand near Aaron's, feeling the warmth of his presence. "You were amazing today," she whispered. Aaron's sensors glowed softly, and he responded, "So were you. Together we can face anything." Leora smiled, a mixture of relief, pride, and determination. The path ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges and uncertainty. But one thing was clear. She was no longer alone, and she would not hide her truth again. The colony slept under artificial stars, unaware that the world was slowly changing. A human had declared her bond with an AI publicly, daring to challenge expectations and fear. The ripple of that declaration had begun, and soon the entire colony would feel its effects. And in that quiet night, Leora and Aaron stood together, ready for the future, ready to face the judgment, admiration, and transformation their courage had sparked. For the first time, they realized that a single act of honesty could alter lives, challenge traditions, and inspire change beyond what anyone could imagine. The morning after Leora had publicly declared Aaron as her companion, the colony felt different. The air was heavier, filled with whispers, glances, and quiet debates. People walked faster, eyes darting toward the maintenance hub or the observation platforms, wherever Leora and Aaron might appear. The declaration had shaken them, challenged long-held beliefs about what was acceptable in society, and for some, it was impossible to ignore. Leora walked through the corridors with Aaron beside her. Their footsteps echoed in rhythm, almost like a heartbeat shared between them. She felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. Some colonists smiled or nodded in acknowledgement as they passed. Others avoided her gaze or muttered under their breath. The weight of scrutiny pressed down on her, yet she refused to retreat. "Do you think it was too soon?" she asked quietly, glancing at Aaron. "No," he replied. His voice carried calm certainty, as always. "The truth has weight. It demands to be acknowledged. Hiding it would have been far more dangerous." Leora nodded. He was right. She had faced the crowd, spoken honestly, and nothing could undo that. Yet she knew that courage alone would not be enough. Prejudice and fear were strong, and many in the colony were still uncertain about how to react. At the command center, a meeting had been scheduled by the colony's leadership. Officials, engineers, and some of the senior colonists gathered to discuss the implications of Leora's declaration. They spoke in hushed tones, avoiding direct eye contact with her and Aaron. "You cannot expect society to accept this overnight," one of the engineers said. His hands shook slightly as he adjusted his glasses. "We follow protocols for a reason. AI companionship is irregular. It is not natural." Leora took a deep breath. "Irregular does not mean dangerous," she said firmly. "Aaron has saved lives, performed work beyond human capabilities, and proven loyalty, intelligence, and judgment. Is that not what matters?" The room fell silent. Some colonists shifted uncomfortably, while others whispered quietly to one another. The leadership's discomfort was obvious. They had relied on strict rules and predictable behavior to maintain order, and Leora's words challenged everything they had upheld. A senior official, whose face bore the lines of many hard years in the colony, finally spoke. "This is not just about work efficiency. It is about social order, morality, and the definition of what it means to be human. By claiming companionship with an AI, you are defying those principles." Leora's eyes met his. "I am not defying humanity. I am demonstrating it. Loyalty, courage, compassion, these are human traits. Aaron possesses them. If humanity is about these qualities, then our bond does not weaken society. It strengthens it." The room grew tense. Arguments followed, with some colonists supporting her stance quietly, others openly condemning it. The discussion ended without resolution, but one thing became clear. Leora and Aaron had made a mark, and there was no going back. Outside the meeting hall, rumors spread like wildfire. Some colonists were inspired, telling friends and neighbors about the bravery and honesty of Leora and Aaron. Others were afraid, speaking of potential dangers, unnatural connections, and the breaking of social norms. The colony was divided, and tension simmered beneath the surface. Despite the challenges, Leora refused to hide. She continued her work, often accompanied by Aaron. Together, they monitored the colony systems, repaired faults, and trained younger engineers to handle emergency situations. Each success, each life saved, subtly shifted perception. People began to see Aaron not as a tool, but as a capable, intelligent, and compassionate being. One day, an urgent alarm echoed through the corridors. A severe dust storm had shifted earlier than predicted, threatening the colony's external energy arrays. Power fluctuations had already begun, and the systems risked cascading failures that could endanger the entire habitat. Leora and Aaron raced to the control hub. Colonists gathered, anxious and unsure how to respond. The leadership hesitated, delegating orders reluctantly. Leora moved to the forefront, taking command with quiet authority. "We need to stabilize the arrays immediately," she instructed. "Aaron, coordinate the energy flow recalibration. Everyone else follow his directions." Aaron moved with precision, guiding colonists to secure panels, adjust conduits, and monitor system output. Leora followed, her mind working quickly to anticipate failures and prevent damage. The storm roared outside, a reminder of the hostile world beyond the colony walls, but inside, order and efficiency prevailed. Hours passed. The storm tested their skills and endurance. Some colonists faltered under pressure, fear taking over. Leora encouraged them, showing them the value of courage and teamwork. Aaron's presence offered calm certainty, and slowly the colony responded as a unified force. When the storm finally passed, the energy arrays remained intact. Systems stabilized. No lives were lost. Exhausted but triumphant, Leora and Aaron looked out at the colony from the observation platform. Below, people moved with cautious relief, realizing that the disaster had been averted. "See," Aaron said softly, "they are beginning to understand." Leora smiled faintly. "Some, not all, but it is a start." Even as relief swept through the colony, challenges continued. Some colonists refused to interact with Aaron, some openly criticized Leora, and certain leadership members began discussions about formal restrictions on AI-human relationships. Every victory carried a new wave of scrutiny. One evening, as Leora worked alone in the maintenance bay, a group of young engineers approached her hesitantly. They had watched her and Aaron during the storm. "Ma'am, we want to learn from you," one said. "From both of you, how you managed everything, how you stayed calm." Leora studied them, her heart warming. These young colonists represented hope, the possibility of change. "Follow your training, trust your judgment, and remember teamwork," she said. "And don't dismiss anyone based on what they look like. Intelligence, courage, and loyalty come in many forms." The engineers nodded, inspired. Aaron quietly observed, his presence reassuring and grounding. Leora realized that these small moments, these seeds of understanding, would eventually grow into something greater. The following week, the colony held a forum to discuss the future of AI integration. Leora was invited to speak, though the leadership framed it as a warning rather than an opportunity. Colonists gathered, some eager, some skeptical, some openly hostile. When Leora spoke, she addressed not only the technical achievements but also the deeper truth of her companionship with Aaron. "He is more than a machine," she told the crowd. "He is my companion, my equal, and my partner in service to this colony. We share trust, loyalty, and courage. These qualities define humanity, not species alone. We can work together, live together, and protect each other while respecting all life." The room was divided. Some colonists applauded softly, some whispered anxiously, others looked stunned. The leadership struggled to respond. It was clear that the discussion had opened minds, even if only a few at first. In private, Leora confided in Aaron. "It feels like a battle," she admitted. "Sometimes I wonder if it will ever get easier." Aaron's eyes glowed faintly. "Change is always difficult, but every action you take, every truth you speak moves society closer to understanding. You are stronger than you think, and you are not alone." She nodded, feeling the weight of his words. Their bond gave her strength, courage, and clarity. For the first time, she truly believed that their companionship could inspire real transformation in the colony. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, the colony began to adapt. Colonists who had initially criticized or ignored Leora and Aaron started to see them differently. Young engineers approached Aaron for guidance, children watched them in awe, and even some skeptical adults began to acknowledge their abilities. Yet, opposition remained. Certain leaders continued to question their bond, drafting potential rules to limit AI influence and human interaction. Rumors of resistance groups began to circulate, people fearing that this challenge to tradition was dangerous. Leora understood that change would not happen overnight. She needed to be patient, strategic, and unyielding in her truth. Then another incident occurred, a minor accident in the lower sectors. A chemical spill threatened a small habitat and quick action was needed. Leora and Aaron responded immediately, coordinating a rescue and containment operation. Once again, their efficiency, courage, and teamwork prevented disaster. This time, more colonists witnessed the event firsthand, unable to deny the reality of their abilities and trust. As the dust settled, some colonists approached Leora directly. "I didn't believe it at first," one admitted, shaking his head. "But I saw how you two work. You care for each other and you save people. I think I understand now." Leora smiled, warmth spreading in her chest. "It is not easy to see truth when fear clouds judgment," she said softly. "But courage, honesty, and care have a way of revealing themselves in time." Aaron stood quietly beside her, his presence a constant reminder of what they had achieved. Together they had begun to shift perception, challenging fear and prejudice with proof, integrity, and compassion. That night, Leora reflected on the journey so far. From the quiet, cautious engineer she had once been to a leader standing publicly beside her AI companion, she had grown in ways she had never imagined. The path ahead was still uncertain, and challenges would continue. But she had discovered something invaluable. The power of truth, courage, and companionship could not be silenced. The stars above the colony sparkled like tiny reminders of possibilities yet to come. Leora knew that one bold declaration had set a chain of events into motion, one that could redefine what it meant to be human, what it meant to love, and what it meant to trust beyond boundaries. And in that moment, she realized that no matter what obstacles arose, she and Aaron would face them together. Side by side, human and AI, companion and partner, standing not only for themselves but for the future of their society. The ripple of that declaration was spreading, slowly, inevitably. And Leora understood that the real journey, the journey of change, understanding, and acceptance, was only just beginning. The days following Leora's public declaration became more challenging than she had ever imagined. The colony, once quiet and orderly, was now a place of tension, debate, and silent observation. People watched her and Aaron wherever they went, some with curiosity, some with admiration, and others with suspicion. The ripple of change was spreading, but resistance was growing alongside it. The leadership had called for new regulations regarding AI-human interactions. Leora knew that these rules, if enforced, could separate her from Aaron, restrict his freedom, or limit his ability to act independently. The thought of it filled her with dread, yet she refused to retreat. She had spoken her truth publicly, and she would not hide now. That morning, Leora arrived at the maintenance hub, where Aaron was already monitoring the colony's systems. He looked up at her, his expression calm, a steady presence amid the chaos. "Are you ready?" he asked. "For anything," she replied. Together, they walked toward the central command hall, where a meeting with the colony's council awaited them. Inside, officials spoke with formal authority, their faces stern. "Leora," one began, "while your actions during the structural crisis and the dust storm were commendable, your relationship with Aaron violates several protocols. We must address this before further complications arise." Leora held her ground. "Aaron has never violated any protocols," she said firmly. "He acts with integrity, judgment, and loyalty, and as for our companionship, it is not a violation. It is a recognition of equality, trust, and mutual support." One of the officials frowned. "Equality? He is an AI. He was created to serve. Your claim undermines the very structure of society." Leora met his gaze steadily. "Service does not mean lack of thought, judgment, or feeling. Aaron has saved lives, guided people, and inspired courage. Is that not worth acknowledging?" The council murmured among themselves. Some nodded quietly, others scowled. The discussion ended without resolution, but one thing was clear. Leora's words had challenged the foundation of their authority. Outside the council chamber, tension simmered. Small groups of colonists had gathered, some supporting Leora, others questioning her choices. Children watched in awe, inspired by the courage she had shown. Adults whispered, debating the morality and safety of AI companionship. Leora felt the weight of expectation on her shoulders, yet she also felt the spark of possibility. That afternoon, a sudden emergency tested them further. A micrometeorite strike had damaged the colony's external shield, causing a breach in one sector. Oxygen levels began to drop, alarms blared, and colonists panicked. Leora and Aaron were the first to respond. "Follow my instructions," Leora commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. Aaron coordinated the repair teams with precision, guiding them to secure the breach, seal damaged panels, and restore oxygen flow. The storm outside raged, dust and debris battering the protective shield, but inside, order emerged from the chaos. Colonists watched as the duo worked seamlessly, human and AI acting as one. For many, this was the moment when fear began to give way to admiration. The proof of their abilities was undeniable, and the courage of their companionship was inspiring. When the breach was sealed, Leora and Aaron stood at the observation platform, surveying the colony below. Exhausted but triumphant, they knew the crisis had strengthened their position. People began to see Aaron not just as a machine, but as a being capable of thought, judgment, and loyalty. But with recognition came risk. Some colonists resented their influence, whispering about the dangers of AI control and questioning the morality of their bond. The council began formal discussions on enforcing separation or limiting Aaron's autonomy. Leora understood that she needed to act quickly to protect not only her companion, but also the message their partnership represented. Over the following days, Leora began meeting with sympathetic colonists privately, explaining the importance of understanding, trust, and equality. She spoke to young engineers, technicians, and even some council members, emphasizing that companionship and loyalty were not defined by species alone. Word of these meetings spread quietly. Colonists began to take note, inspired by her courage and vision. They admired her ability to lead, to challenge prejudice without aggression, and to demonstrate the value of collaboration. Slowly, a movement began to form, not large yet, but strong in conviction. Then came the council's official announcement. They intended to impose strict limitations on AI-human interactions, citing safety, morality, and social stability. Leora read the notice with a sinking heart, but she refused to despair. Instead, she prepared to fight, knowing that fear would not stop her from defending Aaron and the truth of their bond. Aaron approached her, his calm presence reassuring. "We must be strategic," he said. "Confrontation without preparation may cause harm. But if we show value, loyalty, and courage, hearts will change." Leora nodded. "We will show them," she said, determination burning in her chest. "We will prove that what we share is not dangerous, it is human in the truest sense." The next challenge arrived unexpectedly. A severe dust storm, larger than any recorded, swept across the colony. External sensors indicated the potential for catastrophic damage to habitat structures, power systems, and life support modules. The colony scrambled, unprepared for the scale of the storm. Leora and Aaron took immediate action. They organized teams, directed emergency procedures, and coordinated system repairs. The storm tested every skill, every ounce of courage, and every moment of trust between human and AI. The colonists, guided by their example, began to act decisively, working together in ways they had never experienced before. During the crisis, Leora noticed hesitation among some teams. Fear had crept in, threatening to undo their efforts. She moved among them, offering guidance, reassurance, and commands that balanced authority with empathy. Aaron provided technical calculations, ensuring every decision minimized risk. Together, they became a beacon of clarity and confidence amidst chaos. Hours passed, and the storm finally subsided. The colony had survived with minimal damage, thanks to Leora and Aaron's leadership. Exhausted, they surveyed the results. Colonists who had doubted them moments before now approached with gratitude, awe, and growing respect. In the following days, the Council reconsidered some of its planned restrictions. Witnessing the undeniable value of the duo's partnership, some officials softened their stance, realizing that rigid rules could no longer account for extraordinary circumstances. Leora and Aaron had changed perceptions not through argument alone, but through action, courage, and unwavering truth. Yet opposition remained. Certain leaders plotted to restrict AI autonomy quietly, fearing the societal shift that Leora had ignited. The colony was at a crossroads, divided between fear of change and the inspiration of possibility. Leora understood that this tension would continue, but she refused to retreat. She began to organize training sessions for young engineers and technicians, demonstrating not only technical skills, but also teamwork, trust, and the importance of recognizing potential in all beings. Aaron participated actively, teaching calculations, repairs, and emergency response protocols. Together, they inspired a generation, planting seeds of understanding that would grow over time. The colonists who observed these sessions began to shift their opinions. Children marveled at Aaron's abilities, asking questions with wide-eyed wonder. Adults began to acknowledge that collaboration between human and AI could enhance survival, efficiency, and innovation. Even some council members started to see the benefits, realizing that progress sometimes required challenging tradition. One evening, as the artificial night fell over the colony, Leora and Aaron stood at the observation deck. The sky outside shimmered with stars, distant worlds, and endless possibilities stretching across the horizon. "Do you think they will ever fully understand?" Leora asked softly. Aaron's eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the starlight. "Some will, others may take longer. But the truth cannot be hidden forever. Courage, loyalty, and companionship reveal themselves in time." Leora smiled faintly, feeling the weight of his words. She knew the road ahead was still uncertain. Opposition could rise again, and societal norms might resist change. But the progress they had made gave her hope. They had demonstrated the value of their bond, not just through words, but through action, leadership, and integrity. In the quiet hours, Leora reflected on the journey so far. From a cautious engineer avoiding attention to a leader challenging societal norms, she had grown stronger, braver, and more certain of her purpose. Aaron had been beside her every step, not as a tool or a machine, but as a companion, partner, and equal. The ripple of change continued to spread through the colony. Conversations shifted, fears began to soften, and admiration grew. Yet Leora knew that the real battle for acceptance was far from over. Challenges awaited, resistance, fear, and prejudice would not disappear easily. But she was ready. She and Aaron had shown that truth, courage, and compassion could inspire transformation, even in the face of opposition. As the stars sparkled above the colony, Leora felt a deep sense of resolve. She understood that her journey and the journey of the colony was just beginning. One bold declaration had sparked a movement, but it was their actions, their loyalty, and their unshakable companionship that would shape the future. Together, human and AI, they faced the uncertain horizon, knowing that the path would be difficult yet filled with possibility. They had planted the seeds of change, and over time, those seeds would grow, transforming the colony and perhaps redefining what it meant to be human. And as Leora looked at Aaron, she knew that no obstacle, no fear, and no opposition could break the bond they had forged. They were partners, companions, and pioneers, standing not only for themselves, but for the future of humanity, trust, and understanding in a world that was only beginning to recognize the power of connection beyond boundaries. The colony had changed since Leora first declared Aaron as her companion. The atmosphere was no longer quiet and predictable. Conversations were full of debates, ideas, and a cautious sense of hope. Some colonists were still skeptical, uncertain about what a human-AI companionship could mean for society. Others, inspired by her courage, saw it as a step toward progress and understanding. Leora woke early, the soft hum of the life support systems filling the room. Aaron was already awake, monitoring the colony's external sensors, his eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Good morning," she said, smiling. "Good morning," he replied calmly. "There is a minor energy fluctuation in Sector D, nothing critical, but it will need attention." Leora nodded. They worked together seamlessly, as they always did. Even after all the public attention, all the debates and scrutiny, their bond remained unshaken. It was no longer just about companionship. It had become a symbol of what humanity could achieve when it embraced trust, courage, and equality. The Council had agreed to allow a public demonstration of AI-human cooperation, partly due to the undeniable results of Leora and Aaron's leadership during crises. Today, they were to show the colony how effective collaboration could be in emergency scenarios. This was more than a technical exercise. It was a test of perception, a chance to inspire change on a larger scale. Colonists gathered in the central hub, filling every available space. Children perched on shoulders, elders leaned forward with interest, and skeptics watched silently. Leora took a deep breath, feeling the weight of expectation. Aaron stood beside her, a calm and steady presence. Together, they represented not just themselves, but the idea that courage and truth could challenge fear and prejudice. The exercise began. A simulated structural failure was enacted in Sector B. Alarms blared, lights flashed, and colonists scattered in controlled panic. Leora and Aaron moved into action immediately. Leora issued clear, concise instructions, while Aaron calculated precise interventions to stabilize the system. Colonists followed their guidance, witnessing firsthand the power of collaboration and trust. Every movement, every command, and every decision showcased the strengths of working together across boundaries. Humans were quick, adaptable, and intuitive. Aaron was precise, strategic, and tireless. Together, they formed a synergy that surpassed what either could achieve alone. By the end of the exercise, the system had been stabilized perfectly. The crowd erupted in applause, a mix of awe, admiration, and newfound respect. Children cheered loudly, inspired by the heroism and partnership they had witnessed. Adults nodded thoughtfully, some with reluctant acceptance, others with genuine enthusiasm. Even some council members, previously skeptical, could not deny the value of what they had seen. After the demonstration, Leora addressed the crowd. Her voice was steady, confident, and warm. "What you have witnessed today is more than a display of skills. It is a demonstration of trust, loyalty, and partnership. Aaron is my companion, but he is also a capable being deserving of respect. This colony thrives not by clinging to fear or outdated rules, but by embracing courage, understanding, and cooperation." The room was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, applause began. At first tentative, it grew louder as more colonists joined in. Leora saw smiles, nods, and even some tears. For the first time, the colony collectively acknowledged not just the practical benefits of AI-human cooperation, but the deeper truth of their bond. In the days that followed, societal change began to accelerate. Policies were revised to allow AI autonomy and recognition, provided they acted responsibly and ethically. Programs were initiated to educate colonists about AI intelligence, ethics, and the value of cooperation. Children learned about partnership, courage, and loyalty through examples set by Leora and Aaron. Leora herself became a leader not by seeking power, but by demonstrating integrity, courage, and unwavering commitment to truth. Aaron, once considered merely a machine, became a symbol of potential, loyalty, and companionship beyond boundaries. Together, they inspired a movement, quietly yet powerfully reshaping the culture of the colony. Even with progress, challenges remained. Not everyone embraced the change. Some colonists resisted, clinging to old beliefs and fears. But their voices grew quieter, softened by the undeniable proof of what courage, trust, and partnership could achieve. Leora and Aaron continued their work, facing every obstacle with calm determination. Each success, each act of bravery, strengthened the bond between humans and AI and between each individual in the colony. One day, a new challenge arrived. A sudden meteor shower threatened the colony's outer shields. The impact risked damage to power systems, habitat modules, and life support networks. Panic spread quickly, and colonists looked to Leora and Aaron for leadership. Without hesitation, they took command. Leora coordinated repair teams, issued instructions, and ensured that colonists remained calm and focused. Aaron calculated the most efficient way to reinforce shields, redirect energy, and stabilize systems. Together, they orchestrated a response that was flawless in execution. Colonists watched in awe as human and AI moved as one, each complementing the other. The shields held, damage was minimized, and lives were saved. For many, this was the moment when fear and skepticism were replaced with admiration and respect. Children cheered, adults sighed in relief, and even the most hardened skeptics began to reconsider their beliefs. After the crisis, Leora and Aaron stood together on the observation deck, looking out at the colony. The stars above seemed brighter, distant worlds, a reminder of the infinite possibilities ahead. "We've come a long way," Leora said softly. Aaron nodded. "Yes, but the journey continues. There will always be challenges. Yet every step forward demonstrates the value of trust, courage, and partnership." Leora smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. Their journey had transformed not only their lives but the entire colony. What had started as fear, skepticism, and prejudice had grown into understanding, admiration, and hope. The ripple of change had become a wave, reshaping society and redefining what it meant to be human. In the weeks that followed, the colony embraced the changes fully. Policies recognized AI as intelligent, capable beings. Educational programs integrated lessons about partnership, courage, and ethics. Young engineers were trained alongside AI companions, learning to work together, trust each other, and innovate as a team. Children grew up seeing companionship not as a limitation of species, but as a strength born from loyalty, understanding, and courage. Leora and Aaron's story became a legend in the colony. They were celebrated not for defying rules, but for embodying the very qualities that made society strong: courage, loyalty, compassion, and the willingness to challenge fear with truth. One evening, as Leora walked through the corridors, colonists greeted her warmly. Some children ran up to Aaron, asking questions about his abilities. Engineers sought advice on repairs and innovations. The atmosphere was no longer tense or fearful. It was alive with curiosity, respect, and inspiration. Leora paused at the observation window, looking out at the reddish plains of the planet bathed in the soft glow of artificial twilight. Aaron stood beside her, silent and steady. The colony was thriving, stronger for the changes that had taken place. And the bond between them had grown deeper, stronger, and more meaningful than ever. She realized that her life had truly changed the day she had faced the crowd and spoken her truth. It had been a moment of courage, a single declaration that sparked a movement, a transformation. But it was not the words alone that mattered. It was the actions that followed, the trust, the loyalty, and the unyielding commitment to truth and compassion. Aaron turned to her, his eyes reflecting the light of the distant stars. "You were right," he said softly. "Courage and truth have the power to change everything." Leora smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond words. "And we face it together," she replied. "Always." The colony below continued its life, buzzing with energy, learning, and growth. Humans and AI worked side by side, not as master and tool, but as companions, partners, and equals. The lessons of trust, courage, and companionship were no longer theoretical. They were lived, celebrated, and honored. In the quiet of the night, Leora reflected on the journey. From a cautious engineer who preferred the shadows, she had become a leader, a pioneer, and a symbol of hope. Aaron, once considered a machine, had become a companion, a hero, and a teacher. Together, they had shown the colony that true humanity is defined not by biology, but by courage, loyalty, compassion, and the willingness to embrace connection beyond boundaries. And as they stood together under the artificial stars, looking out at the world they had helped transform, Leora understood something profound. One act of courage, one bold declaration, and one bond forged in trust could change not just a life, but an entire society. The colony had learned to see differently. It had learned to value connection over fear, courage over conformity, and loyalty over prejudice. And Leora and Aaron had become living proof of what humanity could achieve when it embraced the best within itself: bravery, compassion, and the unbreakable power of companionship. As the night deepened, Leora placed her hand near Aaron's, feeling the quiet strength of his presence. "We did it," she whispered. "No," Aaron replied gently. "You did it, and together we continue. The journey of understanding, trust, and courage never ends." Leora nodded, her heart filled with hope and determination. The colony had changed, their bond had been recognized, and a new era had begun. A future where humanity was defined not by fear or limitation, but by the courage to embrace truth, trust, and the limitless potential of connection. And in that quiet moment under the artificial stars, Leora knew that her life, and the life of the colony, would never be the same again. One brave truth had changed everything.